All right, so welcome back to the Flower Prophecies. I am Abby Rose, your host, and today we have Sarah Johnston of Florescence Academy. Sarah's innate connection with natural law, plant communication, and years of dedication to the mastery of specialty trades such as apiculture, beeswax chandeliering, and business management, alongside her passion for working with the earth, flower essences, nourishment, energetics, and nervous system regulation, provides a unique and grounded approach to holistic personal development. Welcome to the podcast, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yay, we just actually had such a beautiful conversation about your journey already, and the land you live on and all of the beautiful bees and flowers and things. So I'm like super eager to get into it and hear more about it. So I would love to first just hear a little bit about your journey with plants and how Florescence Academy came to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am very blessed to have always lived with a very close connection with the earth. So I was born and raised in New Zealand until about my mid-teens. And yeah, always grew up like with a close connection on the with the earth. So like living on farms or living by the ocean. All of our kind of family related activities were camping or hiking or like going to bodies of water, and yeah, like always raised with the garden. So always had that deep connection and reverence with the earth. And yeah, also definitely like I think part of being a New Zealander as well is like it's really kind of ingrained in your cultural identity to have like a respect and reverence and caretaking of the earth. So yeah, I definitely feel blessed to have had that. Yeah, I definitely had like a very kind of almost like whimsical, kind of idyllic, like interaction with life and with the earth from a very young age. I've always been like very kind of open in my senses and experience with the earth as well. So always very receptive to subtle energies and kind of like the spirits of the land or the spirits of the plants, and always kind of having little conversations with them and stuff. Yeah, and it's kind of from these early experiences of connection and reverence for the earth and communicating with spirits that like the early foundations of Florescence Academy kind of started to trickle in, because obviously like having these experiences from a young age, but then not really having any like mentor or books to read of like, okay, what is actually going on here? What is occurring? Is this normal? Do other people experience this? Like I had a lot of questions. And through my questions, I kind of began to seek answers and kind of explore with curiosity. And yes, I kind of like found channels to integrate that through, which was like mainly through writing. It was like through the process of writing, I could begin to like reflect and understand what was occurring and understand like the kind of mechanics of what was occurring as well, and actually be able to bring it into some sense of tangibility. So really like Florescence Academy in essence was like born to be a vessel through which I really wanted to help assist anyone who felt called and ready to really connect with their soul spirit essence and bring it into their body, to kind of bridge that gap between like quote unquote spirituality and human functionalism. So actually like integrating them together and really bringing spirituality from this like etherical kind of notion or concept into like a tangible lived experience. It's like something that is of substance and you can actually have a tangible connection with in your everyday life. Like it doesn't have to be something that's like over on the horizon or up in the clouds. It's like, no, it's like living inside of me. It's in my body. It's like, yeah, it's this tangible experience.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that so often we, within this world of, I guess, spiritual awakenings and, you know, finding this connection with spirit, we leave the body and we like are trying to traverse these other realms without any groundedness into our being. And the real magic lies in grounding it into our being so we can actually integrate it into our everyday, right? So I love that. That's so beautiful. I would love to hear if you have like an initial or like a really influential, memorable experience communicating with the plants at such an early age, or even any time until now.
Yeah, like I think because I was so open as a child and I really had this defining experience when I was very, very young, which I believe really kind of like solidified my openness and my receptivity to life and to being able to communicate with plants or with water or land, even the air, like in animals, that I've kind of always had those channels open and just kind of innately been communicating with plants or, yeah, all the elementals. So it's kind of hard for me to like pinpoint one exact experience. But I actually do have this really fond memory when I was in primary school and being kind of raised in the country. I went to like a small country school, very small, very rural. And we had kind of like lots of open fields and paddocks and hills and such. And I have this memory of sitting atop of the hill, and I was sitting in this kind of like patch of clover, and the clover was flowering at the time. And I was just kind of sitting there and like watching my peers like playing in the playground below, and I was just there with the flowers, and the bees were coming, and yeah, like drinking the nectar from the flowers. And it's just kind of like very peaceful, very serene, and just observing everything. And then I heard this little voice go, "Eat the flowers." And I was like, "What do you mean eat the flowers?" And they're like, just eat the flowers. And I was like looking, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess the bees are eating the flowers, so I can eat the flowers too. Like, doesn't seem unusual. And so I picked a flower, and I just started to like very carefully like pick each petal off, because if you've ever seen like a beautiful clover flower, it's like this little cluster of petals. And I just started picking each flower off and slowly eating it, and just continued my observation of my peers below. And as I'm eating these flowers, I'm watching my peers on the playground, and I literally see them kind of start to shift and change into, you know, these different expressions of like animals or elementals. And I'm like watching these human children playing, but like moving like animals, like moving like elementals. And it was like a really profound moment where I was like, oh, like this is like how the land expresses through us. Like the land actually has this expression, or life has this expression through us, where through our body, like through our movement, through our words, through, you know, dance or song or like all sorts of things. Like we literally have these animals and these lands, these elementals like the water and the wind, expressing through our bodies. And we are like very much a reflection of these beings and of these spirits. And, you know, we can kind of morph and change and embody a different element for a different moment. And yeah, I was very kind of curious to have this experience at such a young age. And like now that I kind of reflect on it, I'm like, oh, this is like an early experience of like embodying plant wisdom and like actually having the wisdom of this clover like moving through my body and moving through my vision to be like, hey, here's this additional little feature of life.
Wow, what a cool story. Epic. What an amazing experience to have when you're so young as well. Do you feel like that shifted your perception of life and the natural world straight after that? Or is it just sort of in retrospect that you can now have that reflection?
Yeah, I think it was definitely, it was kind of like, it felt like a compounding event because I'd already had so many things like this occurring, that it felt like very innate as a part of life. And I honestly, at the time, I thought that everyone had these experiences. And it wasn't until I'd actually communicate with people and like talk to them and bring these things up that I'd kind of get these blank stares and I'd be like, oh, we are not seeing the same reality. We are having a very different lived experience. So it definitely felt like a compounding event, which was just like extra like assurity and like extra confirmation of what was already occurring within me.
I love that. It's so interesting too, though, how many of us have those experiences that of deep connection with nature when we're young, and just how it gets conditioned out of us, and we forget so deeply. Like even as you're speaking, like I'm having memories come up of like extra experiences when I was younger, you know, with connection to nature and certain flowers and things, and it's just so like it's the majority of us that forget, and that kind of are just kind of programmed into these other ways of being, right? And then into living these different realities and having different experiences. But to be able to carry that through with you for, not that you fully understood at that age, but to be able to carry that through right through your whole experience is like what a gift. How beautiful to have that.
Yeah, I definitely feel blessed in that regard. And I mean, you know, as a child, it's both a blessing and a curse. You know, it's a great gift, and it's an incredible, you know, weight to carry because you don't understand what's happening and you don't really have anyone to bounce ideas off or, you know, have that point of reflection. But yeah, like I feel very thankful, and I actually love this story. I feel very thankful to have had an experience so young, which was like this illuminating clarification of our truth, of like the actual core essence of who and what we are as living beings on earth. So I'd love to like share, I won't share the full story because it is a little bit gruesome.
No, go for it.
I'll kind of leave out the gory details.
Oh, we have no limits on this podcast.
Okay, good. Yeah, when I was very, very young, so I must have been literally like 3 or 4, because I do believe that like we're all born completely open and like in connection with our innate gifts, which through natural law is designed to kind of evolve and grow and expand like through our life. But modern society or modern life in this age kind of puts limitations and dampens that experience and tries to, in a lot of ways, like indoctrinate it out of us. So it is very rare to be able to like retain those gifts. And I'm blessed to have had this experience from a young age. When I was about 3 or 4, I lived on a farm, and we had sheep. So like we had sheep on our farm, but our neighbor had cows, and we had weeks and weeks and weeks of rain, and all the fields were like so muddy. And when the rain finally did stop, we kind of were going around and just checking out if there was any damage or something. And we realized that like one of the farmer's cows had actually got out and gotten stuck in this big kind of trough of mud. And I remember very clearly like my mum talking to me and saying like, oh, Sarah, like there's this cow and she's stuck and the farmers are trying to get her out and they're going to do everything they can to try and like make sure she's okay. And yeah, they'd spent all day trying to get this cow out of the mud, and mum and I had kind of like made these sandwiches and like made a little thermos of tea, and we were going to take it out to the farmers and, you know, help replenish them after so much hard work. And I remember going and like seeing this cow stuck in the mud, and I remember looking at her and then saying to my mom, like, Mom, she's so tired. Like, she's so tired. She wants to go home. And Mom was like, no, it's okay, Sarah. Like the farmers will get her out. She'll be okay. And I'm like, no, she's so tired. Like she doesn't want to be here anymore. And then sure enough, one of the farmers came over to my mom and said, look, like this cow is spent. Like we can't get her out. We've tried everything. She's exhausted. Even if we do get her out, she's not going to live like a fully, you know, prosperous life. And yeah, so they said, you know, you might want to take Sarah away or something, because we're going to have to, you know, let her pass. And so Mum kind of took me to the side and she explained what was going on, because I was always a curious child and like always like peeking around the corner and wanting to understand. So Mum was good like that. She never tried to shelter me or kind of like hide things from me. She'd explain so I'd understand. And then we kind of went to the side and she kind of grabbed my eyes and tried to turn my head away. But I was so curious, and I turned my head and looked towards the cow as they killed this cow. And in the moment that they let her go, this spirit or this light came out of the cow. And I was just a small child looking at this light that came out of this cow. And I was like, oh, it's the cow. And then I was looking at this light like it was like a ball of light. And although it had no like physical features like eyes, nose, mouth or anything, I could sense its eyes, or like kind of through my senses see its eyes. And I could see and hear this cow observing, or this light observing herself and going, like the first thing she said was, oh, I was a cow. And I was like, oh, the cow was observing that it was a cow. like the cow is this light. And she's like having this moment of realization, like, oh, I was a cow. Like that was the experience that I had. And when I like heard and recognized that, and I was like, oh, the cow is observing herself, this ball of light spun around and looked directly at me, and I got chills all over my body. And this ball of light just like, although nothing was said, there was this recognition of each other. It was like an acknowledgement of a core essence that lived within both of us. Like there was this resonance. And this light was looking at me, and then it came rushing towards me. And just before it hit my face, it skimmed past my nose, and I felt this brush of air brush past my face, and the light went straight up above my head. And when I tilted my head and looked upwards, I could see this silver cord of light extending from my head. And the light that had come out of the cow didn't go into that, but like rode it like a highway, and literally rode it in like beyond sight. And I was like, oh, she's gone home now. Like, I was just like, and like that was my foundational experience from such a young age that gave me that tangible experience of like, this is the truth of who we are and what we are in our core essence. Is sure, we have these physical bodies and these identities and these ways of moving through life, but in essence, we are all that light. We are all that form of consciousness that is expressed through light that quite clearly has a home to go to. And I don't know where that home is, but it knew where it was going. And my tether was going there as well. So we're surely made of the same stuff. So yeah, to like have that experience at such a young age where I was already open to these things. And then that was just like this ultimate confirmation that, like, from that point on, I always had that experience to draw upon. Anytime I had any doubt or, was told something else, like, oh no, there's no life after death, or, there's no God, or there's no like order to anything. I'm like, yeah, but like that cow had a light come out of it and it saw me and it went somewhere. So I'm pretty sure that, yeah, there's more than meets the eye.
Wow. Oh my gosh, I just had so many goosebumps that whole time.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. What a cool experience.
Yeah, I love to share that story, and I'm always a little bit hesitant because it does involve something that's a bit, gruesome and not pleasant. But I honestly feel so thankful for that moment, and I feel so thankful to have been able to witness that and have that experience. And yeah, it's kind of like also extra confirmation of like how the most beautiful blessings can come through our trials and through the most intense hardships or, unpleasant circumstances. Like, we can really be blessed by life through those experiences.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I feel like often it takes those experiences to realize and to be able to witness the blessings on the other side of it, because without that differentiation, we can't see it. We can't really acknowledge it for what it is, and the specialness and beauty that lives within it. So thank you so much for sharing that story. I'm so glad you did.
Yeah, thank you for receiving it. I love sharing that story.
I bet. So good. It's so good. I can't wait for everyone else on here to hear it.
Yeah.
So good. I would love to know, I guess, what practices have helped you deepen your ability to receive these messages, and deepen this connection with the plant world and the plant realm.
Yeah, I think like through life, one thing I've really found as like a foundational element to like being open to receiving plant communication or elemental communication is that childlike curiosity. Like, it's really this kind of like innocent playfulness and curiosity where you put to the side what you know. Like, you kind of like detach from that, like, oh, plants, photosynthesize the light into like, sure, that's the science and I understand it and it's valid, but like, be curious, like be playful and, be open to like experiencing the magic of life. And, who knows what kind of messages are going to come through. And, I think like we can kind of fall into this, this structure of, these practices of like things that we do, like we meditate to achieve something, or we do breath work to achieve something, or we do ceremony to achieve something. And it's like, what if we like did these things with curiosity? Like, we didn't have any attachment to like achievement or a goal to attain. It's like we were actually just simply curious and open to the moment. It's like, let's just kind of be immersed in the experience and curious about what may or may not occur. And I've really found like through curiosity, life will throw you interesting experiences, like magic will trickle in. And I really feel like curiosity is kind of like us opening the door to life. It's like we're opening the door to life and saying like, hey, magic, would you like to come in? We're kind of like creating that space for the plants to talk to us and share their message. And if they see that we are open and receptive and curious about them, then they'll share all sorts of things with us. And I think this is one thing I really love is that like through our own curiosity, we each will receive a different message according to like where we are. And that's one thing I really love about flower essences, especially, is like they're so adaptive to where we are, like within ourselves at that moment. And, we can take a flower essence at one stage in our life and have one experience, and it's so helpful and so beautiful for that moment. And then as you evolve and grow and change through life, you take that flower essence again and have a completely different experience and expression. And the plants are like always adapting to where we are. And kind of like, I guess, with their own curiosity, like observing us and be like, what can I teach her? Or what kind of message would be like best for her life in this moment?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Everything you just said, I couldn't agree more. Like, I literally wrote down a few days ago how the flowers adapt to meet us where we are, but also to evolve alongside us. And you're so right. And this is, I think that sometimes, like, no judgment, but sometimes I feel like there is a little bit of dogma in the flower essence, sort of historically how it's been sort of shared in that flowers have these specific properties and this is what they help us with, and that has helped many, 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 many people. But I think we're getting to that point in time where we need this understanding that they have so much individual medicine for us all. I think I almost see it as like there's been like 3 waves of flower essence, sort of in the known flower essence period, like 3 waves of flower essences, Bach's flower essences, where it was like this introduction, this like foundational role that they played in like opening people's mind to it, right? And then there was like, when everyone sort of found it within the 70s and 80s across the globe, and it was kind of this like cultural movement of like sharing it, like sharing that the flowers had this medicine and they have these specific properties, and like getting it out there to the world. And now I see us in this period of like individuality and sharing the unique medicine, and so many of us differently sharing our own medicine alongside it and infusing it into the flowers as well, like this co-creation, so that each person can really receive it in their individual way and what it's there to do for them, So, I couldn't agree more with what you're sharing. And the curiosity and childlike, so often, like when I'm talking to the trees and the plants, we're having laughs, like they're taking on these character roles. Like, I mean, obviously I'm projecting them into that, but like that's how we're doing it. It's like when you're in that state of flow like a child, where there's no resistance and no barrier, so you're in that joyful state, is when like we receive so much and it flows through us. And so it's like you get to experience it in that joy-like way, even if it's like hardcore messages.
Yeah, bitter tonics delivered with sweetness.
Yes, I love that, bitter tonics.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think another thing I've really found as well, like in relation to the adaptiveness of plants and flowers, is like, sure, a flower remedy may have, or flower essence, may have a particular quality or signature that it delivers, but that can change according to the land that it's on. Yeah. Like, what kind of environmental conditions are going on? Like, what was the season like? Like, how much rain was there? How much sunshine? What were the winds like? Like, there's so many elemental variations, and also like the energetics of the land as well. Like, if you and I were to grow the exact same flower, but in different parts of the world, different lands, especially here in Australia, like we're going to get such a different or slight variations in the expression of the spirit according to that plant's relationship with the land, with the energetics of the land and the wisdom that moves through the land, and it has its own unique relationship with that plant and then also with you. So it's like there's this whole synergy occurring that we have to take into account when we're working with the flowers, or like especially creating vibrational medicines.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's why it is so individual as well, because it's like you're on the land you're on for a reason. Like you're there to work with the plants around you for a reason, because you resonate with them and you have something aligned to share through them. So yeah, absolutely. There's so much that plays into it. And then it's like also what the individual's ready to experience and ready to receive from that specific plant. Like that varies so much to like what is open within them, you know. And then like you say, down the road you experience the medicine completely differently, because you're so much more open to different experiences, different expressions, different perceptions, and so that in itself shifts your experience completely.
Absolutely. And I also like really believe as well there's also the element of, you know, like as we as human beings like become more open and receptive and refined to working with natural law, there's a response from the earth as well. Like she then is allowed to deepen and open and bring deeper wisdom up to us, because we're kind of clearing out our own like blockages or resistances or challenges. And like as we kind of refine ourselves, or, you know, become more quote unquote enlightened, or more so illuminated, more full of our own light, then in response the earth can do the same, and the plants can do the same, and the waters can do the same, and the animals can do the same. They also can be more of themselves, because we're kind of like signaling to them, hey, you're safe. Like, we're not going to hurt you. Like, we hear you, we see you, we want to work with you. Like, you kind of really building that foundation of respect and, you know, receptivity and like awareness also of the innate divine connection between us as human beings and this beautiful planet that we live on.
Yes. It's funny because I think often people, you know, understand this reflection of ourselves in nature, but what you're speaking of is like is nature seeing a reflection of itself within us, which I don't know if a lot of us look at it that way, which is so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. Yay, I love these conversations.
Me too.
So, do you feel as though there are, in your experience, there are, you know, different ways to communicate with different plants and different aspects of nature?
Yeah, I think to like answer that question clearly would be like, I think it's less about like how we engage, but more so like how we observe how nature wants us to engage with it. How does this plant want us to engage with it? Like, what are the, like, in many ways, like, what are the rules of engagement? You know, like, how are we kind of finding that place to cultivate mutual respect and build a relationship between us? It's like, I have to bring the best parts of myself to the plant and say, like, hey, this is who I am. This is the intentions I come with. I see you, I hear you. What do you want? And this is something that I've really been actively doing with my gardening for the last year or more, about a year and a half now, of actually, like, even when the plant isn't a plant but a seed, I hold the seed and I say, okay, you know, I really want to grow you. Where do you want to grow? And who do you want to grow with? how can I best be of service to you? How can I tend you with the most love and care that you have your fullest expression and get to live a beautiful life and, have your full expression of who you are? And it's honestly amazing, like the messages that come through and like where the plants ask to be planted and who they ask to be planted with. And I've found that I've had so much success with plants by doing that, because like I would have planted them somewhere else, like according to the growing conditions and temperature and light and all the things. But the plants are like, no, like I actually want to be on that parcel of land there. And this is why I want to be there, because I need to work with that body of soil and the microbes that are in there. And also I'm a friend to that plant who is going to provide me with shelter and shade and protect me from the wind, or like there's all these kind of different elements that I would have never considered. Like for instance, this year for the first time I've grown mapacho, which is like a prayer tobacco. So it's like mapacho especially, but definitely tobacco is like considered the master of the plant spirits. It's like the master plant. It's like the ultimate plant medicine that you can work with. And I had these seeds, and like before I ever planted the seeds, I sat down with them and I said like, hey, I would really love to work with you, and I really want to grow you and like observe you and get to know your spirit. And I'm just asking for some guidance as to like, how do you want to be planted, and who do you want to be planted with? How should I tend you? What do you need? And I just kind of opened this channel of communication, like built or like set the foundations of the relationship from that early stage of the seed. And then I've kind of continued that communication throughout the life cycle to the point where now she's like really coming into her fullness, and some have flowered, but also like the two hearts of the plant, because I planted them. They wanted to be planted in a community, held in the arms of my roses. So I kind of planted them in this section where they're like a little community of mapacho, and the group around them kind of grew up and then bloomed all around them. And these two plants, which were smaller to begin with, have just like grown with such strength and vigor in the center, in the heart of this community of mapacho plants, to the point where they're like double the height. The leaves are like double in size. And when I look at it, I'm like, that's because you're held in the heart of your community. Like you have that support network around you. And every time I go and sit with the mapacho, I always kind of get that message or that feeling come through of like, we are like a community plant. We are a connection plant. We are the connector both here on earth, but also like with spirit as well, cultivating that spiritual connection with our ethereal family, our energetic family. It's interesting, like the kind of steadfastness of the spirit of the plant as well. Like she kind of like holds her spirit with such grace and poise and like strength, like a strong spine and open shoulders, open heart, and just like holding her head high, not having to prove anything, just like, I am who I am. And, I demand respect, and I'm going to ask you to respect me. It's actually interesting because we had the cyclone here recently, and we had many, many weeks of rain after that as well. And I so wanted to make a flower essence from this mapacho, and I had actually communicated that from the start. I said, look, I want to get to know you and make a flower essence with you. And during the cyclone, I kind of ran out in this little window of opportunity where there was no wind and no rain to check on the plants and be like, are you okay? Do you need anything? I can stake you up. I can do something. And lo and behold, she was in full bloom. Like at the peak of intensity of this cyclone, the mapacho had just released all her flowers, opened up and was blooming in the chaos. And I was just standing there like having an absolute giggle to myself. And I was like, of course you are. Like, of course, everyone else is freaking out because there's this cyclone and it's chaotic. And you're just there like, I just open and bloom and flower and I got this. It was so amazing. And afterwards, when the sun did come out, I went and sat with the plant and I said, look, we have a couple of days of sunshine. I'd really, really love to make a flower essence with you. And she's like, no. Like, okay, but like rain's coming and I really want to. And she's like, no, you can give us offerings and you can sing us some songs, but no, not yet. And I'm like, but your flowers are going to go soon and I don't know if you're going to flower again. And I had like all this kind of logical structure, like kind of things in place. And then I had to surrender and I was like, okay, I'm just going to fully trust you and just like listen to the guidance. And I did. And a week later, the leaves have literally started to like sparkle with resin. And now when I walk past them or go and sit with them, they have the most amazing, like deep, musky kind of tobacco resinous scent. And I'm like, no wonder you didn't want me to make a flower essence with you. Like you were nowhere near your fullest expression. And it's like in this moment that these two heart plants, and I love that it's two as well, because I feel like the mapacho is very masculine and feminine. She like, it really holds both sides with integrity and balance. And these two like center hearts have come forth. And I just know that they're going to have the most stunning blooms. And you have the full experience of like the lush, like green, fluffy, sticky leaves. And that smell, and then the flowers are going to come forth, which these beautiful, like almost like little frilled green skirts, they're so sweet and so cute. And I just know that she's going to flower at the perfect time. And I'm so glad I waited because I'm sure the essence is going to be divine.
Absolutely. I want to try it.
I'll be sure to send you some.
Wow, it's incredible, and I love that you have like formed that relationship with your entire garden from the get-go of like, where do you want to be? Where do you want to be nourished so that you can experience all that you're here to experience? It's so interesting because I just recently I've just in this last week redone my veggie garden after it being empty for the summer. Yeah. And it was the first time that I actually came with that intention as well of where do you want to go? You know, previously in previous years, in my veggie garden, I've just kind of put this different seedlings with the ones that are companions and, you know, by the book sort of thing. You know, and kind of like in their little, you know, the lettuces is here and the zucchinis are here. but this, yeah, exactly. But last week I was doing it and I was like, oh no, like I'm just going to put them where they want to go. And, you know, it was all just a mixed jumble of like this here and this there and like, you know, all together and like just where they wanted to be. And it felt so much more right. It felt like so much more like synchronous, like in synergy with what was meant to unfold with those veggies. So I've literally just experienced that in the last week. So I love that you're sharing that how you've cultivated that garden so intentionally.
Yeah, I love that you've tried that. It's honestly such a game changer. And I mean, I personally have found like you can actually like feel or experience the joy of the plants.
Yes.
It's you actually listen to them and plant them in the way that they want to be planted. There's this tangible light and joy that kind of comes forth from them, and they seem to it appears to me that they prosper like really well from the foundations. Like sometimes you plant seedlings or seeds and they're kind of struggling to get their legs and struggling to stand right in the world. But when you plant them like that by listening to what they want, it's like they're like, oh yeah, this is perfect. This is the conditions I want. And I know my goal. I know where I'm going. I know what my intention is. And they just kind of like, yeah, grow really strong and healthy.
Yeah, beautiful. I'm going to sound a little bit weird here, but have you read the Anastasia books?
I have, yeah.
So when I'm planting my seedlings, I've also been like spitting in their holes, to get that co-creation and what we're here to bring forth together. People listening are probably going to be like, what?
Honestly, like I'm in full support of it, and I know it seems like such an unusual thing because we kind of have this like experience of spit being a dirty thing, but it's like it's only dirty because you're bringing it out of your mouth, but like in truth, like that is your essence, like that is your water, like that is your consciousness and your microbiome that you're offering to the earth. And I've had it so many times where I've gone on hikes or gone on walks to waterfalls or to forests, and often like I'll go and I'm like, oh, I forgot to bring something. Like I didn't bring any offerings, or, I didn't bring something to give to the land. And then like, I remember the first time it happened where the land was like, just give me your spit. And I'm like, you want me to spit on you? Like, like that's a bit degrading. And it was like, no, like offer me your spit. Like you can offer your waters. You can give me, like, you can introduce your life and your light to my body. And I'm like, I'll literally stand there and like offer a prayer to the land and have a conversation with the land and then offer my spit. And the land is just like, thank you. Like it's such a great offering. So I'm in support of, spit in the hole of your seedlings. I
love it. Yeah, so beautiful. I also love, because I've done that with planting, but I actually haven't ever thought or kind of, received the message to use that as a gift to the earth, so that's a really beautiful take on it. That's a really beautiful take on it.
Yeah, I remember like someone saying, the greatest gift we can give, or the greatest offering we can give is ourselves. And however that expresses itself, like we can offer our voice, we can speak kind words or like speak our inspirations, we can speak our observation of, what we find beautiful or inspiring or, enlightening to us. We can sing songs, we can leave our hair, we can offer our waters. Like, it's the greatest gift we can give to the land is to offer ourselves. And realistically, in the end, we do. So, like, why not cultivate that relationship while we're waking and while we're living and moving through life and build that reverence so that when we reach that moment, it can be the greatest offering of like the most beautiful devotional offering of giving our bodies back to the land.
I love, you speak so beautifully. The way that you share this relationship that you've cultivated is really inspiring. I'm loving listening to you. I'm just sitting here like, talk more, talk.
This is where it's good for me to not overthink, because I'm sitting there thinking I'm tying myself in knots, but as soon as I start talking, I'm just like, oh, where's all this gold coming from?
Literally,
I knew these things.
Incredible. Like, I am really enjoying this conversation, and I think everyone is going to be receiving so much from it. Like, you have so much wisdom flowing through you. And, like I said to you when we got on, like, I feel like you don't share a lot, but like out there on like, social media or whatever, but like you can feel that you have that gold like stirring within. So I am so happy to have you on here sharing it.
Yeah, I'm so thankful to be here. Social media is definitely not my forte. And yeah, I often find again, like, when I'm in that process of thinking and trying to like curate content or like think about what to write, it's like an immediate block. And I'm like, oh, I don't know anything. What could I possibly have to say? And I'm like, I have so much to say. I'm definitely trying to like encourage myself to bridge that gap, you know, like to move through that resistance and be like, you know what, Sarah, it's safe. It's okay. Just put your heart out there, you know, like just play with it. Be curious.
You know what? That's what everyone, you know, wants to hear, because it gives them permission to be curious, to just put their heart out there and be themselves, you know. So and I think you share so beautifully. So yeah, everyone will receive so much from it.
Thank you.
I'm super excited to ask you about the other element of your work and passion, which is the bees and your deep connection with the bees. So please share with me how this relationship to the bees began, and, you know, what the bees have taught you about the flowers that maybe you might not have learned otherwise.
Yeah, so I mean, I have loved bees for my entire life. That's for sure, because I've always been so connected with the earth. So, you know, there's definitely that very close, like almost intimate relationship between the bees and the flowers or the earth. And yeah, like having the blessing of growing up on like the farm or always being connected to a garden, I've always like been observing the bees. Like even with my clover story, like part of that was like the observation of the bees, like drinking the nectar from the flowers. And a couple of years ago, I actually went to on a holiday to Tasmania with my mum, and when we were there, we were like watching all the bumblebees, and I was so excited to see bumblebees again because I grew up with them in my childhood. And I just love how fuzzy and fat they are. I'm just like, oh, that's so cute. And yeah, my mom was sharing this story of like how like quite often she'd come outside and find me in the garden, and there I was sitting in the garden with bumblebees on me, and I'm sitting there patting them as if I'm like patting a dog or a cat. And I'm like, oh, you're so fuzzy and cute. Patting these bees. So yeah, I've definitely had that deep admiration and love for them for a very long time. And yeah, I always wanted to learn beekeeping. I honestly thought it was something I would do in my retirement. I was like, when I'm an old woman and I'm a grandma or something, I'll take up beekeeping and just kind of potter in my garden and keep bees and, you know, do whatever, make candles with their wax or collect their honey or who knows, just live a great life. But yeah, like I always had that passion and desire. And when I was living in WA, I actually was visiting this company that made organic mead, and which is like honey wine. And I got talking to the guy and was chatting to him and saying like, oh, I'd love to learn bees, and I'd love to like learn how to make mead and do other things, because I'm a very creative, like hands-on, expressive person. And he actually offered me an apprenticeship to learn beekeeping and mead production, but it would have required me to like move kind of very remote rural WA, and I was like, I'm not sure if I can do this. There's no water, and that's a big factor for me. I need water, you know, like natural bodies of water. And I thanked him and said I'd consider it. And we had some conversations via email and such, and we're just chatting and discussing bees and mead making and stuff. And then I moved over east. I came to the east coast of Australia and was traveling here for about a year and a half. And through shared divine design and serendipity, I met Simon from Save the Bees Australia, who's been doing amazing work in bee conservation and, you know, like trying to ban the imports of adulterated honey and kind of cultivating more awareness of buying actual honey rather than supermarket products, which are highly adulterated and often artificial sugars or syrups. he's done a lot of great work with like hobbyist beekeepers. And through having conversations with him, we kind of got talking about bees, and he said, oh, like I know this guy who might be able to offer you like a beekeeping apprenticeship, or maybe even some work or something like that. And so he actually introduced me to my now beekeeping mentor and dear friend. And so he owns the company he's the founder of the company that I've been working with for close to 10 years now, Northern Light Candle Company. And he's been an amazing beekeeping mentor for me and taught me so much, and really opened up a world that I really wouldn't have been able to experience had I just gone into hobbyist beekeeping and trying to learn by myself. And I have this really like clear memory of the first day that I met him, and his like very kind of to the point, like no fuss, like very kind of business, like get to the point kind of attitude. And he's just like, okay, you want to learn beekeeping? That's good. How much do you know? Have you ever been stung? Like just very kind of like bang, 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 to the point, trying to filter out like, okay, you a worthy investment, or you're just going to slide type thing. Pretty much a businessman. And he was asking me like, are you a gardener? And I said, oh, like, I don't know, like I've gardened a lot through my life, but like I'd kind of consider myself more of like a student of gardening. Like I wouldn't put my hand up and say I know everything about gardening. And that kind of sparked some curiosity. I remember him turning around and kind of looking at me like, okay, something about this girl. She's not just like run of the mill. And so we kind of walked through the garden, went to the hives, and he cracked the lid of the hive, like smoked them, cracked the lid of the hive and pulled the hive lid off. And just like as a sheer somatic response, I immediately jumped forward and like stuck my head over the hive and was so enamored by the bees. And I was like, oh my God, like look at the bees and look at the honey. And I was like sticking my fingers in there, and I was just like so excited to finally be able to have that opportunity of seeing inside a hive. And it was just such a natural expression and excitement and really childlike curiosity of being able to have this experience. And I remember him kind of like stepping back and looking at me like, okay, what's going on with this girl? And I was just like asking questions, and we kind of spent like a long time looking through the bees. And then after that had like a lot of great conversations and chatting about the bees and asking all the questions and stuff. And then that kind of evolved over many months to the point where he like invited me to come and work for the company. Which over time has evolved to me having a very integral and integrated role in the business, and also like having really like a beekeeping apprenticeship, like having that immersion of being able to work the bees and work with the beeswax to produce candles, and having that like hands-on experience of both sides of like, okay, here's the bees and the intricacies of the hives and how they work, and what they're collecting and the structure and the function, and then also this beautiful product that we get, this pure Australian beeswax, where it takes, and I think like when you have that hands-on experience of working with bees and seeing them bringing honey in and seeing them build comb, like building the beeswax comb, and understanding that it takes 45 minutes for a bee to create a 16th of a pinhead of beeswax. And that beeswax is actually an exudation of their body. So it actually comes from their body, from their blood, through their mammary glands. So the beeswax actually coming from a mammary gland is actually a type of breast milk. So this is literally like the essence of the bee. It is the blood of the bee that they're getting. They're taking us one little scale, which is a 16th of a pinhead, and they sit there for 45 minutes chewing on it with their manacles in their arms, and they're mixing like their saliva and the honey and pollen into this beeswax until it's malleable enough that they then go and they stick it like on the honeycomb or like onto the foundation, and they use their little legs to like polish it out. So it's literally like a thin scale, and it's when it's fresh virgin wax, it's like translucent. You can see the light shining through it. And when you understand that of like, and you actually see that occurring where the bees are actually building this cone, like often I stand there and I stare at it and I'm like, this is unbelievable, like nothing short of magic that they can do this with such efficiency and precision, and like really like they can pump it out. Like although it's taking them 45 minutes, there's so many bees that they can do so much in such a short period of time. And then, you know, we get tons of beeswax delivered to us at a time, and you stand there looking at a ton of beeswax and go 45 minutes for a 16th of a pinhead. And I'm standing here looking at a ton of beeswax. Like every single little crumb is precious. Like every single little crumb deserves reverence. And, you know, it takes 70 ton of honey to produce 1 ton of beeswax. So that's like an almost unfathomable amount of bees behind that quantity of both honey and beeswax. It's, yeah, nothing short of a miracle. Really, it's like, wow.
Wow. I feel like everyone should know these things so that when we're consuming honey, you know, and burning wax, the appreciation that we get to then have for it. Like we take these things so for granted and like have no idea the work and the energy that goes into creating that. And it is just wild to hear that. Like insane.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, like I'm a firm believer that like honey really should be a luxury product. It should actually be something that we pay a really good amount of money for and we feel happy to pay it.
Yeah.
And you consume it like a medicine. You know, you actually like you have this reverence and respect and understanding of what is required to actually produce that jar of honey. And you know, why you're paying $30 for that jar of honey. Like I would happily pay $30, $50 for a premium like jar of honey that's a pure strain honey from the remote forest of, you know, of the bush, like literally a single origin honey from one type of flowering tree. Yeah, and then like, I mean, also because I've had an insight into commercial beekeeping, you know, I understand the amount of work and devotion and care that the beekeepers go through to bring that honey to our table. Like beekeepers are some of the hardest working people I know, like, but they do it with such love and devotion. Like there are so many beekeepers I've met that like, what could I ever do other than beekeeping? Like, how could I ever give up bees? Like it's their whole life, their whole existence. And, you know, it's a really hard time for beekeepers at the moment and a hard time for bees like across Australia. And in my opinion, they're not getting paid anywhere near enough for their honey. We do our best to like push the price of wax to like make sure that we're helping support the beekeepers, and we pay them a higher price for premium wax than what they would get if they went elsewhere. Yeah, but I think like especially now in this age, like it's vital that we support our beekeepers, and this is where it's really good to find out who your local beekeeper is and support them, like buy the products that they're selling or, you know, donate to them or attend their workshops if they do that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, just like the actual the product, which is the honey or the wax, like bees themselves are like, we overlook them as like such integral parts of our lives, right? And I think that they have so much more to them than when we recognize. And I'm sure that this is what the beekeepers are receiving, is like that magic, that energy that the bees hold, right? I actually recently made a bee essence, and it's really beautiful to work with. And it was such a like serendipitous occurrence when I made it, and I feel so special to have made it. But it has also really, really allowed me to digest more the importance and the power that bees hold, and what they're here to do. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on whether you see bees as, I guess, these messengers between humans and the plant kingdom or queendom.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, yeah, I mean, bees are very much, like the environmental canary in the coal mine type thing. It's like we can really see the health of our local environment by the health of the bees, and also like the caretakership of the land by the caretakership of the bees. And yeah, I always say, like, I really feel like beekeepers are probably one of the last that I understand, like one of the few, maybe not last, but one of the few professions that live with such an intricate and interwoven relationship with the environment, to the point where they understand the intricacies of an environment and our seasons as well, which I personally believe are far more than just these 4 seasons. There are definitely intricacies or sub-seasons within seasons that also are like sub-seasons within years. Like, it's very kind of intricate. They live with a close connection with that, because the bees live with a close connection with that. Like, the bees are so intimately interwoven with our natural environment, and they know things, weeks ahead of before we actually physically see them or sense them. The bees will start collecting more pollen or collecting more propolis in preparation for the incoming season. So like, bees will start to like really collect more propolis before the cool comes, because they want to seal up their hive and make sure that no heat escapes, so that when the cool does arrive, they're already prepared. They're not like waiting till the cold comes and then going, quick, let's go collect some propolis to make sure we're warm. They're like, no, the cold is coming. They can sense it. And I mean, who knows the intricacies, but like, I imagine that they can sense it in the changing of the light, because bees are very solar connected. Their whole navigational system is based off the sun. They are solar feminine beings. So they are obviously reading the changes in the sun, the changes in the direction of the light, reading the changes in the plants. And I imagine that there is a form of communication between the bees and the plants that they are taking the nectar from, because at the end of the day, like, the flower is the reproductive or creative expression of that plant, and it's exuding a nectar or its waters, which is its consciousness, that the bees are then coming and bringing into their body. So they're inviting that consciousness into their body and assimilating that and working with it and then transforming it into honey. So I have no doubt in my mind that there's definitely a form of communication occurring where the plants are speaking to the bees and the bees are no doubt speaking to the plants. And they're working together, and the bees are kind of reading those micro changes all the time within the environment. And you can really see that, like, when you have worked with bees for a long time and you kind of get to know the intricacies, you can start to see, like, reflected within the hive and how the bees are working or how they're kind of moving within their home, what's occurring within the environment. You can see when a honey flow is starting to edge off or when it's starting to come in. You can see when the bees are about to like produce a lot of brood, which is like their babies, according to the amount of pollen that they bring in, because the pollen is like the protein, the sustenance that they feed to the baby bees to create really strong, healthy, robust bees. And if they start to collect lots of pollen, then you know that they're going to have a big breeding cycle, especially when they start to move the pollen, like they kind of start to clear the pollen out and shift it elsewhere, because they're preparing for baby bees to be born or like kind of grow, which is in preparation for like an incoming honey flow. So they're kind of like always like massively weeks ahead of themselves. They potentially like 4 to 6 weeks ahead of themselves all the time. So although we might not, see in our day-to-day life, like, oh, this tree is coming and or honey flow is going to start, which you can, like, if you have a trained eye and you know what to look for, you can read that. But the bees read the intricacies far more than what we can with our naked eye. And I mean, also like with the fact that, bees have the extra perception of light. They can see ultraviolet. No doubt there is like a light communication occurring as well, which we can't necessarily, we can't commonly receive or experience. But when you work with flower essences more, I feel like you start to work with the light of plants more, and you can really see the light emanating from plants. And you can see the vitality and health, or the peak of expression of the plant according to the amount of light coming through. But bees are experiencing that with ease all the time. They can always see it. It's always there. It's just like an innate skill that they have. And yeah, no doubt they can see that vitality kind of building and opening. So they're doing their preparation and in anticipation of a honey flow coming or pollen coming or more propolis coming.
They have so much to teach us, in the ways of just being so present, like you said, with the cycles and the seasons, not just the seasons that we generally know. But yeah, they just have so much to teach us. And I guess obviously the flowers and the bees and the plants, they are interdependent on each other, right? So it's just like they obviously have a deep wisdom to share together. And I think if everyone was present with bees and flowers, how the world would be a different place.
Absolutely. And, this is like one of the foundational things that I initially learned with bees, and the immediate message you receive for them is like presence, like complete and utter presence. It's like, when you're with bees, like when you are working with them or with like in their field, especially when you're working with them, like there is nothing else in the world that exists other than right there in that moment with those bees. And like I find that like you become, and also the bees are so receptive to the subtleties. Like there's subtle changes, like, in your thoughts or like in your emotions, in your feelings, in where your hands are placed, how you're kind of moving the frames or like interacting with them. Like if you have even just like a flash, like a little moment of fear come up, you'll notice the response of the bees. They'll kind of like fizz. Like they get this like fizzy thing where they like, they kind of froth up. And it can just be like a passing moment. Like, maybe a bee walks past your finger and you're like, oh, it's going to sting me. And they'll respond to that. Whereas if you're just calm and peaceful and present and very aware and observing, they will be exactly the same. They'll be so chill and so calm, and they'll tell you, like, when they've had enough. They'll be like, okay, I'm done. Like, put me back together. Like, stop playing around with me. But yeah, like, it's definitely like, that's a real blessing of working with bees, is you kind of, yeah, you just start to cultivate this deep presence and awareness. And I find that that is a great gift of beekeeping, where it actually makes you more receptive to the intricacies and subtleties of life. You actually, like, it's literally like your vision kind of opens and is made clear, just because of your presence. It's this real, like, peaceful, calm, and, you know, again, kind of tying back to curiosity. It's like, in your presence, you're curious because you're just observing without any attachment to a particular emotion or a particular objective. You're just there in the moment, present with life.
Yeah, so beautiful. And like, just as you're speaking of that, it's like, that's also like kind of like what the flowers ask us for as well, right? It's just that they're not maybe an animal that can reflect that as obviously, until we become present enough, until we cultivate that sense of like groundedness and receptivity to the subtleties, right? And, you know, if the bees are showing us that, and then we can see that within the flowers, like you say, it's everything in life. Like, that is what life is calling for us to be that present, that attuned, that grounded, and that kind of in receptivity with every moment in life. And that's what I think we receive when we work with the medicine of the bees and of the flowers, is the ability to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Life is, I mean, it's alive. It's in the name. Life, like, you know, reality, like being a living, breathing entity on this planet, which is living and breathing and conscious. It's always communicating with us. It's always speaking to us, guiding us, talking to us. It's like, it just literally requires us to have that curiosity and just that open and fortify the receptivity to receive the communication. Because I feel like sometimes, you know, we can kind of just like move on. It's like we kind of bypass it. It's like, you know, the communication comes in such a like subtle and gentle way that we can sometimes overlook it and forget, rather than capturing it in that moment and being like, oh, like that was a curious thought, or like that was an interesting sensation, or why did the light move like that? And it's like, in that kind of curiosity and inquiry, that's where the channels start to open. Because like, rather than kind of putting a solution or like putting something in a box and going, oh, that is that, like that's the solution, that's the reality, you kind of like structure it, put it in a box, identify it. It's like, you instead open the door of your receptivity to like curiosity and go, like, you inquire deeper, like, oh, what was that sensation? And then you asking a question, and in a lot of ways, intentionally or unintentionally, seeking deeper clarification, or asking a question, you're kind of going like, oh, like, what was that? And then whatever it is that's communicating with you can be like, okay, there's that receptivity, like there's that curiosity. So now I can respond, I can give more. And the more we engage in that, the more we receive. And that's where you kind of get this relationship building, like no different to building a relationship with a human being or an animal, like a pet or something, or your environment. Like, you're building that relationship through communication with each other and staying open to receiving the spirit of that being.
Yeah, absolutely. And even, you know, coming back to like receiving, the guidance from ourselves, from our inner knowing, because that's how we build that as well. It's like it's like I cancelled this, or not cancelled, rescheduled this interview with you on Monday, which is something that I would never want to do, right? But I'd held myself to this identity that I wouldn't cancel on someone last minute like that, right? But because I was present enough in myself to listen to my body, I followed through with that, like calling to do that. And it was in the moments of like afterward, when I was just, being and laying and like not being on a call with you, that I received a really important message for myself. And that wouldn't have come through if I hadn't actually followed that little piece of guidance in the first place. So it's all about that presence and all about listening. And it cultivates this this confidence and this trust in life and in ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't remember the exact quote, but there's an amazing quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson, who is an amazing writer. Like, oh my God, I don't really put anyone on pedestals or anything like that, but his writing is amazing. Like, he was writing in like the 1800s or something, and like if you read his work, it literally transcends the ages. Like, it was so relevant for that moment, and I feel like no matter what point of time you read it in, like it would be so relevant for the moment. And I think that's such a skill to be able to communicate like that through the written word. But there is a quote which I don't entirely remember, so I'm sorry if I butcher it. But he says something along the lines of like, these are the voices we hear in solitude, and a perfect faith is due. Like, it's those quiet, still voices that we hear in solitude, or we hear like in the quietness, that a perfect faith is due. And it's like, by you like acknowledging that message within you and having a perfect faith and going, I'm going to respect this and listen to it, then the wisdom comes through. And it's often, when we don't, we push it aside, or we kind of keep going, that it's like, hold on, you've just kind of created a bit of a crunch in the system, and now the message can't come through, so we're going to have to send you a louder message. And then that's when something happens, like you get sick, or you stub your toe, or you scrape your finger, or something happens to be like, hey, listen, like,
wake up.
Yeah.
Here's a funny fact that I just thought I'd share. It's when as a child, I had a best friend in primary school who was real crafty and arty, and she made me this felt pillow, and it had a quote, and I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe the quote was from like a line from a Bob Marley song or something like that. And it says, wake up and live. And she gave me this pillow. Anyways, I always had this in my mind. And when I was 21, I got wake up and live tattooed on the back of my ankle.
Oh my gosh.
And I always was like, why did I do that? But it's hilarious because it's like on the back of my ankle in this unconscious spot where I can't see it. And every time I somehow catch a glance of it, I'm like, whoa, like that's the medicine I need right now.
That's amazing. Like on an energetic level as well, of like, out of sight, but on a directional force. It's like, hold on, like, what's your unconscious motivator here?
Yes. Oh my God. I like literally laugh about it every week.
Oh my God, that is so good. That's great that it has a connection to your friend as well. Like, such a beautiful childhood experience. Like, how sweet.
It's so funny. Oh gosh, the things you do, but I mean that are meant to happen.
Yeah.
It's so funny. So I'd love to actually just ask you one last question, because this has been such a beautiful conversation. I have just, loved hearing everything you're sharing, but I would Also, love to know from you what you believe the flowers are trying to communicate to humanity collectively right now.
Such a beautiful question. Yeah, like honestly, in a lot of my communication with flowers recently, like especially this year, and when I reflected on like some of last year as well, there seems to be like, although the flowers have their own unique messages, there does seem to be a clear consistency in this message of, like connecting with what is true for you. Connecting with, like, for instance, like I made a really beautiful rosemary flower essence recently. And one of the core things that she kind of was asking me is like, what is your truth? Like, what are your devotional practices? What are your prayers? What are your songs? Like, what is your inspiration? It's like, she's kind of like, it felt like she was like bringing it back like into the core of my being. And as a collective message, it was saying like, what is true? What is your truth? What is the life force that flows through you and only you, that you are here to share with the world? It's like you can seek inspiration from other people. You can listen to other people's wisdom. You can follow other people's devotional practices. But at the end of the day, like, this is your life. Like, it's each and every one of our lives. And it's our responsibility to show up for our life and to show up for our unique core essence, and to be able to share that with each other and to like lovingly share it. And, it's really kind of comes back to that, like, how deep do you know yourself, and how connected are you within yourself and your lineage, your land connection, your elemental connection, your plant spirit connection, and actually kind of anchoring into that like solid internal center as like a pillar of stability for such unstable times, because there is so much, instability and doubt and horror, and there's so many things that we could be really deeply rattled by and upset by and destabilized by. But when you actually really connect and begin to know that inner self, that inner light, that pillar or that core of light that you are, that is your truth, when you know that, that is your pillar of strength. That is the stability that you can move through life with. You can move through the uncertain times with, and you can always come back to. If you have, we all know life throws you curveballs and upsetting things happen and unexpected things happen. But if you are connected with that inner pillar of light, you have that connection with your inner truth and knowing, and your ancestral and land connection, your divine design, then that is the place you can return to for stability, for reassurance, for direction, for guidance. You don't have to run to someone else to say, oh my God, this thing happened, what should I do? And then get incomplete advice, because the person doesn't know the intricacies of your spirit. They don't know the intricacies of your life and, what kind of limitations you have in your mind. Only you know that. Like, you are living with yourself every single day, and it's up to you to have that foundation or have that wellspring to draw nourishment from, and really to like walk through life with that core pillar of strength. And that really was like one of the foundational messages of the rosemary, was that like inner resilience and strength. And, like, even if breakages happen, we'll multiply, we'll only become more abundant. Like, if you've ever grown rosemary, at the top of rosemary, she will throw out 5, 6, 7 shoots. Like, one stem turns into like 8 stems. it's like she is literally a messenger of resilience and strength. But yeah, like she was really asking to kind of come down into our roots, like into the core of our essence and know ourselves, and to draw strength and nourishment from that inner knowing, and to let that be our stabilizing force for the expansion, like for the illumination. And as we go through an ascension cycle, which I truly believe is actually like an internal experience, it's not a external going elsewhere experience. It's actually much more of a coming in, and knowing yourself. Like as we go through that ascension cycle or ascension cycle, we need that stability, and especially coming up in the years that are coming, we need that inner pillar of stability so that we know who we are and we're unwavering in any sort of external influence or navigation when they try to usher us down. You have to take responsibility and decide for yourself if that is the way for you or what the alternative is.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. I love that message from the Rosemary. Rosemary has been one of my beautiful allies. I have this huge bush out the front of my house that I stand behind every morning when I walk outside and ground. And yeah, I love that message. I love it. So thank you so much for sharing. And thank you so, so much for coming on and sharing all of your wisdom and your light. And it's truly, like, I know I've said it a couple of times already, but it's truly been so beautiful to listen to you and receive your messages. Is there anything else before we end this one that you feel called to share with everyone?
No, I feel pretty complete. I'm very happy. I feel so thankful to have been here and to be able to speak with you, and yeah, for my message to be as coherent as possible.
And it was, absolutely. I feel like everyone will receive exactly the medicine you were sharing. So yeah, it's been beautiful. And if anyone would like to find your offerings, where can they do that?
Yeah, well, you can find me on Instagram. I'm trying to be more active on my posts and my reels, but I'm mainly active in my stories. So you can find me at Florescence Academy on Instagram. And I also have like a link tree in my bio, which will take you to my webpage and to where you can book sessions for flower essence sessions. And also I'm working with crystal elixirs as well, which are really amazing for more so integration phases of working with the mineral structures of the body, which is very integral. So yeah, you can find me there. I also have a blog membership on my webpage as well, where I share stories like I've shared on this podcast. Unusual and quirky and enlightening and beautifully inspiring stories. And it's very much like a storytelling kind of wisdom sharing experience. So that's a very kind of low cost way to engage with my wisdom. It's literally like less than a cup of coffee. So come donate me a cup of coffee a month and get a delicious story to read.
Love it. So beautiful. Thank you so much, Sarah. And thank you everyone for listening in to this conversation. Please, please, please share your thoughts and what you took away from it, what you enjoyed. And I will be back sometime soon.